Glad to have you today for our review of the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs 2022 Homeowners Association Report. I am Carri Grube Lybarker. I'm the administrator and consumer advocate for the department, and it's my pleasure to be able to dive into this area with you. So just also want to give a reminder for folks that this presentation is not meant as a substitute for reading any of the laws that we discuss or requesting an interpretation from the appropriate authority or getting the assistance of an attorney. We're just trying to give an overview and educate folks on areas that we have knowledge of here at the department. So just some background on the Homeowner Association Act. So it became law in May of 2018. Many years prior to that, I mean, I'm talking like maybe 15 to 20 years, there had been different bills introduced at the legislature to try and put some kind of regulation or guardrails around homeowner associations. They really took many shapes and many forms. If you're curious, if you did a simple Google search of South Carolina Homeowner Association bill or act or law or whatever, these would pop up as well. And it has created a lot of confusion as far as what is the actual law in South Carolina and what is our role here at the Department of Consumer Affairs with the Homeowners Association Act. So today we're going to try and clarify this portion of the act for you. So what does the Department of Consumer Affairs do with regards to the Homeowner Association Act? So we take homeowner association complaints. We did take these complaints prior to the act going into effect, but the act just specifically now tells us that we are supposed to. So it made it clear for us on what our role is. We collect certain specific homeowner association complaint data that's listed in the statute. We share this data annually with the governor and the General Assembly, and we provide education to homeowners and homeowner associations. So what do we not do under the Homeowner Association Act? So here at the department, we do not administer the homeowner association statute. So what does that mean? So that means if someone has a question about what certain parts of the law mean or how it applies, we can't give any kind of formal interpretation on that. There's no agency that's listed to administer the Homeowner Association Act. So those questions would go to the Attorney General by default. And then we cannot enforce the Homeowners Association Act either. So if, just for example, there's a requirement that the governing documents would be filed with the local register of deeds wherever the homeowner association is located. And if so, if a homeowner association does not do that, we don't have the ability to force them to do so under the Homeowner Association Act. So hopefully that kind of clarifies our role and sets the stage for what we'll talk about with the homeowner association complaint data. But a question we often get then is, how does a homeowner association know what they can and cannot do? So number one is through applicable state laws. So there's 3 of them that apply in the homeowner association arena: the South Carolina Nonprofit Corporation Act, the South Carolina Horizontal Property Regime Act, and the South Carolina Homeowners Association Act. And so, as I mentioned, we will have a webinar in March during National Consumer Protection Week, where we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into the applicable state laws. It's going to be an hour presentation instead of a 30 minutes presentation, and we'll get into the details of how these laws may apply to a homeowner association and how they interrelate as well, and where more than one statute may apply at any particular time. So if you have specific questions related to the laws or a situation that you may have within your homeowner association, want to know how those laws would apply, then you can email those to us at scdca@scconsumer.gov, and we'll put that over in the chat box too, but it's scdca@scconsumer.gov. If you can email those by March 2nd, that would be great. We'll also have another couple of options that we'll go into at the end of the presentation for other ways that you can get those questions to us too, including through the survey that you'll get after this particular presentation. Our little how do we do survey has that link there as well. So the other way that a homeowner association knows what they can and cannot do is through the governing documents. So the governing documents generally create the homeowner association through the declaration, the master deeds, and then they give the bylaws there too that cover the rights and responsibilities of members of the HOA and set out how the homeowner association will operate, including, you know, meetings and dues and things along those lines. And then you have your covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the CC&Rs, which are also referred to as rules and regulations in the different laws. And those set the limits on how homeowners can improve their property. It may cover landscaping, structural or architectural parameters, guests, pets, things like that. And so those essentially are what are at the core of the authority of a homeowners association. So what if you encounter some issues with your homeowners association? We have a couple of tips for you there. So first, we recommend that you try talking with the Homeowner Association Board of Directors and be prepared for this conversation. So what do I mean by be prepared? So first is, we always tell folks, have you checked your governing documents? Have you looked at those covenants, restrictions? Have you looked at the bylaws and the master deed, which, just a reminder, the covenants and conditions, restrictions, those rules and regulations, the deed, they must be in the Register of Deeds office. There was a timeline given, I think it was January of 2019, for any homeowner association that existed prior to that. They needed to get those over to the Register of Deeds office by that time frame, and then anytime they're amended that following January, they need to be updated in the Register of Deeds office. So if you don't have a copy of them, some Register of Deeds offices have online portals that you can search through, or you can certainly go and visit them and request to copy those documents. And then you also want to check those governing documents and see if there's any kind of dispute process or a formal kind of avenue for you to bring your concerns to the board of directors. And then we also say you can elect members that you think will be more responsive to your needs. You can use that democratic process to do so, or you yourself could even run to be on the board of directors. And if the issue involves a monetary dispute, magistrate's court could be an option for you. And we have a link here to a self-help FAQs that the South Carolina Supreme Court has put out about what the magistrate's court process looks like. And this was one of the items contained in the Homeowner Association Act. So if there's a monetary dispute, you do have an avenue, a court action, a legal action through the magistrate's court that you may want to take. You may also want to seek the legal advice of an attorney. Some of these issues that we've been seeing more recently related to homeowner association complaints are more complex. So we're having to close them out as undetermined because of the disputed facts. So you may want to get an attorney to assist you, and then you can also file a complaint with our office. So you can file your complaint online at consumer.sc.gov. You can also do a PDF process, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. The question we often get is, why should I file a complaint with your office, seeing as though we don't administer or enforce the statute? Number one is we do have success stories. We have been able to get refunds, credits, or adjustments for consumers. Last year, it was about $8,500 that we got. The year before is about $7,000, and that's mainly for fines or violations that got waived. A lot of the documents that are requested that maybe they have fallen on deaf ears at the homeowners associations, we've been able to get them provided to the consumer through the complaint process. And then repairs or maintenance that may be been put on the back burner, otherwise not done. If someone files a complaint, then it gets completed. So those are a couple of our success stories there. But just a reminder, in the complaint process, because it is a voluntary mediation process, we cannot force a homeowner association or a homeowner to participate in the process. We cannot require a specific outcome or attempt to arbitrate the dispute. But again, if you do file that complaint, it is accessible on our public search portal that we mentioned earlier. Whenever you could background a business, all the complaints filed with our office can be searched. So you can at least see the general nature of the complaint. You can see who it's filed against, the time frame, whether or not they responded, and what the resolution was there. So that's always a benefit. And then the legislature. So the complaints that we get go to the legislature in the governor's office so that they can see if there's a data or a data trend, rather, that they may want to address through legislation. And we also recommend that you contact your legislators directly at scstatehouse.gov. That is the South Carolina legislature's website. You can contact your legislator. You can also find out who they are at the bottom of the screen. If you put in your address, if you're not aware who your senator and representative are, you can easily do that. They'll let you know, and you can even email them through their contact page. And one other thing I will say too, and we say this with all of our complaints, is that sometimes the homeowners association may not be aware that there's an issue, right? So your board is made up of volunteers. Sometimes there is a property management association associated with the HOA that may have kind of a professional knowledge or more experience in dealing with it. But sometimes you just have, it's regular folks in your neighborhood are just trying to do the best thing for your neighborhood or what they know, and they just may not realize there's an issue. So bringing a concern to their attention will help them resolve that issue, or maybe there needs to be an adjustment to the bylaws or the restrictions or whatnot that may need to go through a vote of your homeowner association. So it just kind of puts things out in the light. So you file the complaint, you go to our How Do I, and you click on the File a Complaint tab, and then that puts you to our consumer complaints page. And so we have a drop-down box for general complaints, but that second drop-down box is for filing a homeowners association complaint. So that's where you would click, and you could either file online through our online portal, which is our recommendation, because it usually gets processed faster because there's continuous communication between us and you that could be done through chat within the portal. It gets emailed out to the business through that portal. You can file it 24/7. You don't have to wait for us to come in to start processing it. So it really is a convenient method. But if you do want a paper form, you can download the complaint form there, or you can contact us toll free at 800-922-1594. And so that's kind of step one, is filling out the general complaint form. Step two is you also must complete a HOA supplemental questionnaire form. Now, this questionnaire contains the information that the homeowner association law requires us to collect for the homeowner association report. So you can either download the HOA questionnaire if you're wanting to submit paper documents, or you can click the link to go to our online form so that you can do everything online. Once we get the complaint, it'll be assigned to a complaint analyst and processed, and we'll mail it to the business, receive the response and review it, and then assign it the appropriate status. Now, just to give you some insight on what this process looks like, we facilitate communication between the consumer and the business. Again, we can't arbitrate it. We can't make the consumer or make the business respond or provide any kind of resolution. But what we do is we try and make sure that we understand what the consumer complaint is, make sure we have all the supporting documentation. So if you're saying you were fined, or the homeowner association told you that you couldn't put up a certain fence, we want to see the communications about that. And then we will forward it to the business. And then when we get the business response, we're making sure that they have responded to each of the issues that's raised in the complaint. There may be an opportunity for a rebuttal if new information has come about. So that's an option too, but again, it's only for new information. All right, so we are going to roll into the 2022 Homeowner Association Report data. So in calendar year 2021, from January through December, we received 309 complaints against homeowner associations. As I mentioned previously, this was our 4th annual Homeowner Association report. So since we started collecting the specific data points that the legislature requested us to, we've received 853 complaints. And how does that break down? Well, we got about 36% of those last year, 28% in 2020, 25% in 2019, and 11% in 2018, which was just a half a year because of when the law went into effect. So we have certainly seen an increase in those complaints. As far as what made it into the 2022 Homeowner Association report, 263 of the 309 complaints are delineated, and they were filed against 180 homeowner associations or their management companies. And the reason why 46 of those complaints were not included was that 35 did not meet the statutory requirements, and that mainly is the homeowner association supplemental questionnaire was not received. And that is a requirement in the statute for it to be included. 10 were duplicates, and then 1 was referred to the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission because of a potential discriminatory issue. So 263 complaints, that was a 37% increase over the amount of complaints we received in 2020. And then the complaints raised 705 concerns because we had multiple issues that were raised in a singular complaint, and that was an increase of 83%. over the year prior. So what kind of things were people complaining of? 16.45%, which was our number one issue, was the failure to adhere to or otherwise enforce the covenants and bylaws. We saw a lot of developer transitioning to homeowner issues, and so there was something specifically in the bylaws that says when the developer was to transition the homeowners association to the homeowners themselves. Board elections not being as they are set out in the bylaws, so they were infrequent or off cycle, and then violations being cited that weren't in the bylaws, covenants or restrictions. The second category, with 12.77%, was the failure to notify residents of board actions. So we saw areas where folks were getting liens placed on their property that they were not made aware of, or there were meetings where notices were not given to the homeowners. And then the third category, almost 10%, there were requests to access information or view documents that were ignored. And so that's pretty much self-explanatory there. The top 10 counties that we saw as far as complaints go, Horry County had a little over 30%, which was similar to last year. And then Richland came in with about 13%. Beaufort was new to the top 3. They replaced Charleston from last year, and they had about 8%. Greenville had about 8%, Charleston was about 7.25%, and then it certainly decreased from there. So I just want to kind of go over some of the numbers for you, and I know I'm going over. We're probably going to be a little bit over on time today, so I apologize, but I really want to get into this info to give you hopefully what you came for. So 4%. So we had 4% of our complaints were closed unsatisfied due to a business's failure to respond. This was a 2% decrease over the year prior, which is great. But even if we look back to 2014 to 2018 data, before we had the requirement to collect this data, when we were taking homeowners association complaints, we had about 13% of our complaints being closed because a business never responded to us. So we certainly see this as an improvement. And I'll say there was one homeowner association or management company that accounted for 30% of the complaints that were not responded to. And that was the same from the year prior too. So the majority of people do respond to the complaints, which is a positive. We also closed 4% of our complaints as satisfied, consumer satisfied. And a lot of those dealt with refunds, credits, and adjustments, or as I mentioned previously, an action being taken that previously was not taken before the complaint was filed, such as making repairs or maintenance. 12% of our complaints were closed as undetermined. So this comes down to those disputed facts. There may be legal issues or other complex issues like misappropriation of funds or fair elections that, again, we don't have the jurisdiction to arbitrate, and so we close them as undetermined so that the consumer can take other action, most likely needing the assistance of an attorney. 13% of our complaints were abandoned by the person who filed them. 12% were closed as abandoned because of the failure to submit the questionnaire, and then 1% because the consumer just wanted to close out the complaint after it had been sent out to the business. And then 66% were closed adequate business response. Again, the businesses addressed the issues that were raised in the complaint and were able to point to whatever foundation that they chose to in their response. So here's some resources for you for more information, especially if you want to view the Homeowner Association report in its entirety. You go to our consumer resources page and you can either type in consumer.sc.gov/HOA-ed, or you can just go to our main website at consumer.sc.gov, click consumer resources, and then help for homeowners. And there you can find the ditty on our Homeowner Association Act, the Nonprofit Corporation Act, the frequently asked questions that, again, you see a couple of those over in your handouts section of the GoToWebinar app. When you go to that page for the Homeowner Association Ed, we also have the laws listed. We have the Homeowner Association report that you can click on, and that takes you to the reports page that has the executive summary that goes over a lot of what we did with the data today. It also has past years reports too. And then the report itself is in Excel format. So you can search and filter the different columns to find your county or your homeowners association. If there's a specific issue that you want to look at, you can all do it through there. And then we also have contacts on the Homeowner Association education page too that you may need, including the county register of deeds offices and the magistrate's report information there.